you can have a very diverse community which is not inclusive. And at the same time, you can have a highly inclusive community which is not diverse. But in a society as diverse as ours, primarily through migration, diversity can be a byproduct, a factor arising out of source countries, family reunification, etc. But without intentional policies that lead to inclusion, it can remain a demographic footnote, which is, again, I would say another value base that I come from. So just looking at a few of the changes, Harold, you did a great job in summarizing them. In my little time, I'm going to focus on the good, the bad, the ugly. And just pick a few examples of where I see some good, some bad, and sadly, a lot of ugly. So on the reforms in the federal skilled worker program, the paper points out the new bias towards younger people, people with more language, people with arranged employment, the higher involvement of employers in picking and choosing. And we know from previous research that these indicators are important for hitting the ground running in terms of getting a job. And since economic inclusion is a very powerful indicator of integration, one would have to conclude this is good. People come to Canada, they speak the language, they got a job, they're on their way. But I want us to think of immigration as a big beast. If you tickle the nose, the tail will twitch. And this is what I fear, and this is what you have probably all learned about unintended outcomes. With expectations of higher language, pre-recognized, authenticated credential recognition, the higher involvement of employers, we will see a shift. It's a fear. I have no evidence, but it's a fear that we will see a shift in source countries. That we will get more people from Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the US, and fewer people from the Philippines, South America, Asia, etc. And this is precisely at a time when Canada badly needs to broaden its trading base and to diversify its trade relations with the world, primarily with China, India, the BRIC countries. We have powerful diaspora networks already. These are largely latent, and I fear this shift in selection will create a shift, will create an imbalance in our work towards diversifying our trade relations. And maybe that's a paper after 2 years to examine, did this really happen? I've looked at some results from Australia, and to some extent, this is true. I'm also not sure that our entire discourse on immigration and skilled workers, we go trolling the world for the best and the brightest. Again, in Milan, in Metropolis, I was with some South Africans who were bemoaning the fact that South Africa loses 50% of its doctors to receiving countries, 50%. And we were having this discussion about global migration movements and, you can't prevent people from getting up and seeking a better life. But they did say, but we paid for this education. We don't have enough doctors in our country to serve our people. Can Canada not, at least for every doctor it takes, give 3 poor students in South Africa a scholarship to study medicine in Canada? I mean, those were some ideas. But what I wanted to get at is that, and I'm not an economist, but I do know enough about how the world works that an economy is not just made up of highly skilled workers. Yes, you need the creative class, but the creative class needs healthcare workers, it needs service workers, it needs people who work in different places doing different things, and to simply rely on temporary foreign workers creates an exclusion of an entirely different kind.